Fine. So the screen is visible to you? And we
Yes,
have
ma'am.
both the syllabuses, MA Economic syllabuses we also have, and the MSc B.Ed also. I don't know how many have you have the syllabus of MSc B.Ed, because the one student was asking about it. So B.Ed students, do you have the syllabuses or not?
No, ma'am.
I will share with you all. Okay. This is the syllabus. Basically, the syllabus is common, but the structure is different. So I'll share the syllabus, and this, I guess, it is for MA Economics, and the content is similar. Only the structure is different. Okay, for the B.Ed. So I'll share both. Now, we have here the theories of international trade. We have basically three modules. The module one would talk about the classical theory, absolute advantage. Theory is also the classical theory, comparative advantage is also the classical theory. And then we'll go for the neoclassical one, that is the neoclassical one, that is the Heckscher-Ohlin theory. And then from the Heckscher-Ohlin theory, we'll move on the extensions of the Heckscher-Ohlin model, that is the factor price equalization, Stolper-Samuelson theorem, specific factor model. There are also the classical theory extension, or we can say that there are the Ricardian theory extensions too. Wait, I need to admit. Okay, so the extensions of the Ricardian model you would also study in that case. So there are the few Ricardian extensions, like after the theory of comparative advantage, it was the need. I think people are still joining. So should we wait, I think 1 or 2 minutes, otherwise it's getting disturbed. How many of you have joined? I think there are 22. So there should be 36. All 36 are joining for all online classes.
No, ma'am.
No, you don't have idea about it.
Yes, ma'am.
So only the faculty has idea means. So you're going through the classes of Google Meet only, or some other mode also?
Ma'am, some classes are on Zoom as well.
Okay. Okay. So which is the comfortable for you? I have both.
Ma'am, Google Meet is more comfortable.
That's
Yes, ma'am,
more.
Meet
Even
is
I'm
good.
finding it is comfortable, though I was also not using it earlier. But then now I'm finding it's comfortable more than Zoom. Okay. I don't think now people would join. So it's 22 now. Let's see if they'll be joining, then we'll discuss again. Okay, let's start with this classical theory. The classical theory, before classical theory, there was a mercantilism. The mercantilism is basically was the idea about, that time only they were focusing on the exports. The mercantilist theory has an emphasis on the only exports, not the imports. And that time the gold was a currency. They wanted to acquire more gold. That is why the only export was done and was motivated. There was import also, but the export was motivated during the mercantilism. But because of this only export, the Adam Smith has criticized it. Like every country, if will do the exports, then who will do the import? So international trade is not possible in that case. So Adam Smith has given the first theory, that is the absolute advantage theory, after that in the classical one. So, absolute advantage is focusing on the specialization. It means the countries who are having more resources on a particular field, they can specialize the goods only in that category. And with that, the absolute advantage, it means the absolute differences you can find between the countries, like country A and B, and you can see that the country A has more the wheat resources to produce, so that the wheat in the wheat only they can specialize, in the other country they can go with another product. So specialization can reduce the cost according to the Adam Smith, and then the country has to offer that commodity. So that was the idea of Professor Adam Smith, which has focused on more absolute differences between the countries, absolute differences in the cost. Then there was a shift on the comparative advantage, which was given by Professor Ricardo. The Ricardian theory is basically the idea of opportunity cost. Earlier, there was the theory of labor value was also added into that, but nowadays this is not a part of it. Still, they are also focusing on the skill of the labor, which is definitely different country to country, and that can also contribute into the cost, and that is why there is a difference of opportunity cost. But there is no meaning to add the theory of value again to differentiate this opportunity cost. So there is a debate between the economists like to add it or not. So we consider only this opportunity cost, but yes, of course, this theory was started with the two characteristics. The one is opportunity cost and the theory of labor value. Then labor productivity is also dependent on these. So if there are the differences between the opportunity cost, then the countries can go with that specialization and can offer that commodity in the world economy. Now, the important part in case of classical theory analysis was there was the constant opportunity cost, or we say that there is the constant production possibility curve. We'll come on that in our technical class, that what is actually this constant opportunity cost. And based on this constant opportunity cost curve, they are actually offering and trading with each other and also gaining something out of trade. Then there is some debate on trade is better than no trade. And this debate is basically started with the autarky point to trade point, and then restricted trade to free trade. So there was a debate between different kind of trade in the world economy, and this was analyzed by Professor Jagdish Bhagwati, Professor Camp, and also the Professor Ramachandran. They have given the analysis and article or the research on the gains from trade where they analyze this. So we will have the idea of Professor Jagdish Bhagwati into it, why this trade is better than no trade, and even why restricted trade is better than free trade, or we say free trade is better than no trade. So there are the different, the opinion of the economist on it. Then constant and complete specialization in a two good, one factor extension of a multi country and a multi commodity trade. These all are the extensions of a classical theory, specifically comparative advantage theory. So these extension we would be going to study. Then gains from trade and terms of trade would also be analyzed. The terms of trade is basically based on the offer curve. So I think the first class would be based on this offer curve, because I do feel the tools of international trade has to be studied first to understand what are the concepts. Okay, so the theories you would analyze and understand only based on the tools. So offer curves and also the theory of opportunity cost, like Habeler has given, has to study first. Okay, then by understanding or having the understanding of these topics, that like offer curve and the opportunity cost, you will definitely go through this terms of trade and also the reciprocal demand curve, which was given by Professor Mill. And then we will jump on this neoclassical trade theory, two factor, two goods. See here, the two factor, if you go for the classical whole part, there was only one factor of production, that is the only labor. Okay, or we say only one factor of production. We are not discussing about any other factor. But the theory of two factor was started with the neoclassical trade theory. It means Professor Habeler has started with the theory and a concept of opportunity cost, this two factor analysis, and then it continued with the Heckscher and Olin analysis. The Heckscher and Olin has talked about factor abundance. It means the country who has more factors. It means inputs. It means abundance of a factor will reduce the cost, and that commodity can be offered to the world economy for the trade, because their cost would reduce. And they're giving this theory based on price analysis and also the cost analysis, sorry, abundant analysis and also the price analysis. So both ways they are analyzing it. But this is also not sufficient, because in classical theory and also this neoclassical theory, they are following the important assumption, that is the constant returns to scale and perfect competitive market. So constant returns to scale was the one problem and obstacle for all trade theories, and that is why there was a new trade theory too. But before that, we should study this extensions of Heckscher and Olin model, and the extensions went to the factor price equalization theorem, which is based on the Stolper's theory of income distribution, and that is in the short run and a long run too. The Stolper-Samuelson theorem has given the long run theory of income distribution based on the price equalization, and the short run theory based on the specific factor model, which says that in long run there are all factors variable, so accordingly income distribution get changes for both the countries when they are participating in international trade. And when it comes to the short run, there are some fixed factors, some immobile factors, which is affecting the theory of income distribution within the country because of participation in international trade. So this was all about the first unit. Then second unit is specifically talking about the new trade theories. So we definitely have the first, the criticism of the Heckscher and Olin theory, that is the Leontief paradox. Most of you know about it. And the factor intensity reversals, which is also the criticism of this Heckscher and Olin theorem. The Heckscher and Olin theorem is based on the important assumption, that is the factor intensities will not change for the countries. It means the country who has more labor, they'll be producing only more labor intensive goods. It means they cannot produce more capital intensive good even in the future. So that is not possible, even not realistic according to the new trade theories, and that is why we have this criticism factor intensity reversals, and we'll be studying the few cases in that. Then intra-industry and intra-firm trade, these are the two specific models. Intra-firm trade, intra-industry, but before that, the classical, what they talked about, that was based on inter-industry trade model. Like if we go through this classical and neoclassical version, they are mainly focused on natural comparative advantage. It means whatever we have, only based on that we can offer our specialization. But that is not true as per the realistic international trade, which says that the small country can also specialize though they have less resources. Okay, they can offer the goods and the specialized goods by acquiring comparative advantage and following the R&D and the technologies. So that is all about the intra-industry model, which is also the model of Krugman, who has given this demand creation. And this intra-industry model is similar to this Krugman's analysis. So we'll be definitely merging both of these together. Then modern explanation of trade patterns, transportation costs. We all know the new trade theories, what we have, like Posner and a Werner. So the dynamism, transportation cost, and all these are related to this. So this dynamic product differentiation, monopolistic markets presence, because now imperfect competition we don't have the perfect competition present in case of a realistic economy. So based on this, we would be studying these new trade theories too. And the important is what this growth trade theories. See, the terms of trade and offer curve is given here, but this terms of trade and offer curve we would be taking here first. The reason, because this based on offer curve, we can study all. So this topic would be taken first, this offer curve. Then growth and terms of trade effects. Based on this Ribansky theorem, immeasurizing growth. Immeasurizing growth was given by Professor Jagdish Bhagwati, and this is based on if the country is doing more over exports, and they are not keeping goods for themselves, then it's just likely measurizing growth, which is actually not a growth. So that there is an analysis of those countries who are a large country. See, in international trade, the gains are different for those countries who are the smaller one and the larger one. So there's also the differences you would see in the analysis for a small country and the large country. The Ribansky theorem is also talking about those countries who is following a growth pattern based on the technical progress. It means we already have studied the technical progress in case of micro 2, and like capital deepening and labor deepening. So those capital technical progresses is also affecting the growth. So Ribansky analysis is just assessing how the factors, if resulting the increase in the factor growth when you are making constant the other things, assuming all other things are the constant, then the country would have, the more opportunity to produce and also to offer more specialization to the world economy. So how this is affecting the growth to the country itself. So that is also the gains part and analysis part. Then we have a new trade theory, the Krevin, who is talking about the factor availability theory, Cannon for the human capital, Posner is talking about, the technological gap. It means the one country who is inventing the technology and the production, then how other countries, taking time for imitating it. So that gap, demand lag, and also supply lag is getting, we will be evaluating in this. Then Vernon is actually talking about a product life cycle, and Krugman, I already have told you, that is just synonym of this intra-industry. So we'll be merging both analysis together. Then module 3 is talking about general equilibrium effects of a tariffs on welfare, offer curves and tariffs. Here the offer curve you would study with reference to tariff. For a large country, see, the offer curves are being moreover used for the large countries, and for small countries we have a different analysis of the opportunity cost. Then arguments for protection. Protection, it means we are actually having a debate on free trade and also protection. So nowadays we know that even as the WTO's implementation, when the WTO came, then they allowed 5% of a tariff, and the 5% of a tariff is just a negligible tariff. If you go back, the 50 years back or 60 years back, then the countries are imposing 64%, 65% of a tariff. So 5% tariff, the WTO's implementation is just following a small protection for the countries, but at the same time, because it's just negligible amount, this is also promoting a free trade. So to motivate more international trade, the WTO came into the light after the GATT. Okay, so the debate on the protection will be discussing with reference to infant industries, with reference to this offer curves, terms of trade, with reference to sunset industries. It means economic argument and a non-economic argument would be taken into that. Then quotas, which is part of a non-tariff barrier. Then we will compare between the tariff and quota, which is better for the country in terms of gain. Countervailing duties and the export subsidies, they are just, the purpose is similar, but how the other country would counter attack on the export subsidies when they are supplying goods based on export subsidies. Then effects of tariffs on factor prices, effective rate of protection. Effective rate of protection is just an idea what the country is specifically, imposing the tariff, like a nominal tariff, and also the tariff on imported goods item. Like we have ECGC in our country, they are, importing capital good item for assembling the parts of like laptop, like personal computers, or many other things like that. So we are imposing some tariffs on imported goods also. So in that way, this effective rate of protection we would be discussing. Then dumping is the another analysis. We all know what is the dumping and how the country would, the gain out of it. Non-tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers like this quota, and again we would be discussing export subsidy, countervailing duties already mentioned, and dumping is also the part of non-tariff barrier. So these voluntary export restraints, that is also the part of non-tariff barrier. So it's just a non-tariff barrier category. And the theory of custom union, the second best. We already have studied micro 2. Am I audible to you all now? You are listening me? Or is there
Yes,
any
ma'am.
doubt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought the phone was ringing. I thought somebody has some doubt. Okay. So theory of custom union is basically a microeconomics topic. We have studied the theory of second best, and I hope you all remember what is that. Kya hai? Theory of second best? I think somebody is asking me to admit. Okay. Yes, tell me, what is the theory of second best? क्या हुआ? लॉकडाउन का सर? हाँ? Yes, I'm asking something. Anybody can share. What is the theory of second best? No answer? The theory of second best was given by Professor Lipson Lancaster. When the Pareto optimality is not able to achieve, then you have to go for a second best choice. Second best choice, which is available, or which is, we need to choose, or we are bound to choose in the presence of imperfect competitive market. Okay. So we do not have this perfect competition, which is not realistic. So Pareto optimality is possible only in case of perfect competition. But the second best says that you can choose a second best position, and where you have the situation of imperfect competition, and also there are some externalities. So you are accepting externalities, but at the same time you're choosing the second best option. So what is the second best option in case of international trade? If we're talking about a trade block, okay, the trade blocks, hope you all know about the trade blocks. The WTO's article number 24, this agreement is actually talking about those trade blocks or the regional trade agreements. Like we have SAARC, South Asian corporation, we have the SAARC, and also the ASEAN, we have LAFTA, we have NAFTA, Mercosur. So these are the trade blocks. But we also have the European Union, which is actually the example of custom union. Okay. So here we are going to study this theory of custom union. So we have only one custom union in the world economy, and that is what the European Union. But what this European Union is doing? The European Union, there are 27 countries all together are making this European Union. They are following economic union also, and they are also following monetary union in that. And I have given you the stages of okay, I'm sorry, that was a ninth semester, the stages of integration. But then this economic integration says what? Once they started this custom union, they adopted what this economic union and also this common market, and then they followed this finally monetary union. Now this says what? They have a common currency, they have a common policies. Okay, there are no barriers and obstacles to free mobility of factors is also possible. So with that, the cost they are able to reduce, and also they have common agricultural policy. So cost is reduced. They have no non-tariff barriers, they have no tariff barriers. So for them, they are only one. So European Union as one you know the union, or the as one country, they are trading with the third or rest of the world. And this rest of the world, they are offering as one offer curve, the all goods and the services, and they are gaining better than when they are playing as an individual. So that is why this is the second best the option which you can select in the world economy, by having a group. Like South Asian countries are having one group, and they are offering, they are treating the rest of the world as a different, and for themselves in a group itself, they are not taking any tariff or a non-tariff barrier. So this way, definitely you can minimize the externalities and can go for a best and can gain out of this international trade. Then finally, we have this GATT and WTO. Let me see, some other person is there, I guess. Okay. So the lastly, we have this stages of GATT and WTO. So we all know, as I was mentioning, why this WTO came. This is just to promote more international trade, for more developing countries to encourage to participate in international trade, to provide them subsidies, and also for the environmental aspect is also taken care by this WTO, for the eco standards, like quality standards for the products, and also the eco standards for the products. And they also wanted to bring multilateral trade agreements. Okay, so that is why the Doha round was there. Even the 10th a seventh ministerial conference you can also take. The both are talking about this multilateral trade agreement. So this multilateral trade agreements was also important, which was absent in case of GATT. The GATT was only talking about the goods exports and imports, but this WTO is also including services in that. Okay, so WTO is really very vast. So we'll have the discussions on this. There is a food security issue. There are various issues. Even GATS is also there. GATS is different from the GATT, the General Agreement Trade and Services. That is the GATS, and also the TRIPS and TRIPS, which are the characteristics for the WTO, and that is why they are promoting more quality products. And also the FDIs and FIIs, they are promoting to the nations itself. So this is all about your syllabus when we will be starting this one by one. Okay. So I think the first thing we need to study the tools for the international trade. How many types of opportunity costs we have? Do you have any idea? We have studied in case of microeconomics too. How many types of opportunity costs we have? The opportunity cost we'll be treating as a tool because for the classical theory, for okay, three. Mayank is saying three. So can you tell me कौन से तीन है? Yes, Mayank. There are 7 stages of integration. Okay, that Weber's message I'm reading now. Okay, tell me, Mayank, how 3 you know, increasing, decreasing, and constant. So here we have majorly 3, but we can also have one more pattern. The one more pattern, that is the combination of increasing and decreasing one. So there is a fourth one too. Okay, so that is the one tool. Then the another tool we have, that is the offer curve. Okay, so anybody can give me the idea about offer curve? Can anybody give me the idea about offer curve? What is an offer curve? Yes, Bhavani, you're saying something. Why you're typing? Why you're not coming on your with audio? We can interact, no?
Ma'am, actually, I was saying there are two opportunity costs, that is implicit and explicit. Oh, that was wrong.
There are 3 major opportunity costs.
Yeah.
The one is increasing, decreasing, and constant. And the fourth one we can discuss because that is the realistic one, which is the combination of both increasing and decreasing. So we have 4 exactly.
Yeah.
Over, okay. The Weber is saying given by Marshall how much import we can have over our exports. Mayank is saying this curve tells us about the quantity of exports and imports of an country.